All right, when you picture a Viking, what comes to mind? Probably horned helmets, right? Brutal raids, conquest, the whole deal. But you know what? The real story is so much more interesting, and that's what we're going to dig into today. We're going to peel back the layers of legend to answer one huge question. Why did the Viking Age even happen? I mean, that really is the question, isn't it? For something like 300 years, these folks from Scandinavia just exploded onto the world stage. We're talking about people who reached North America, who worked as elite bodyguards for emperors in Constantinople, who literally redrew the map of England. So how? How did a relatively small group of sailors manage to change the world? And why then? What was the spark? Now, you might be thinking the answer is obvious. It's gotta be their amazing longships, right? And don't worry, we'll definitely get to those. But the real story, the very beginning of it all, it doesn't start with their ships. It starts with the land they were trying to get away from. So what we're looking at is a situation where the whole Viking explosion, it wasn't really born out of this grand desire for conquest, at least not at first. It was about something much more basic, a geographic problem. Scandinavia itself was practically pushing them into the sea. Okay, let's break that down because it's a huge deal. You look at Norway, it's just vertical. You've got these breathtaking mountains dropping straight into deep fjords. Gorgeous, right? But try farming on a cliff. Good luck. Then you've got Denmark, which is all low and marshy. And Sweden, it's covered in these huge forests, leaving very little good soil. So what do you do when your population is growing, but your land can't support it? Well, the land itself is basically telling you to get out and look to the sea. And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? The Vikings were not invaders who learned to sail. They were sailors who became invaders. See, because traveling by land in that part of the world was so tough, they were already complete masters of the water. The sea wasn't a barrier. It was their highway system. It was their backyard. So they didn't just wake up one day and decide to learn how to sail so they could go raid somewhere. Nope, they were already expert sailors who just realized, hey, we can use these skills for a lot more than just fishing and getting from point A to B. So you've got the perfect setup, right? You have a people being pushed out by their own geography, and they're already incredible sailors. It's like having the fuel and the engine, but you still need the key to start the car. And for the Vikings, that key was a piece of technology so revolutionary, it unlocked the entire world for them. I'm talking, of course, about the Longship. Okay, this ship was an absolute masterpiece of design. It wasn't just a boat. It was basically the Swiss Army knife of the seas. Think about it. It was tough enough to handle the crazy waves of the North Atlantic, but it could also glide through water less than a meter deep. You could sail it with the wind, or you could row it against the current. It was perfectly symmetrical, meaning you could reverse direction and make a fast getaway without having to turn the whole ship around. And, this is the absolute kicker, it was light enough that the crew could literally pick it up and carry it over land. It was their all-access pass to pretty much anywhere they wanted to go. Let's just pause on that one point for a second, the shallow draft, because honestly, this might be the single most important feature. See, every other major power at the time had these big, deep ships that needed a proper harbor to dock. But the Vikings? Nope. They could land an entire raiding party on literally any beach. Even crazier, they could sail hundreds of miles up a river, deep into the heart of a country like France or Russia. They could attack cities that thought they were completely safe from any naval threat. It was a total game changer. And that's the key takeaway here. This one piece of technology, the Longship, completely flipped European geography on its head. All those rivers that were just for local trade, they suddenly became Viking highways. These guys didn't have to stick to the coasts like everyone else. They could slice right into the heart of a kingdom, and nobody saw them coming. So, armed with this incredible ship, the Vikings didn't just, poke around the edges. They exploded. They shot out in every direction, creating these vast sea roads that would connect Scandinavia to, well, pretty much the entire known world. Okay, let's look west first. Here, they became maybe the greatest explorers of their era. And this wasn't just some lucky accident. It was a deliberate, step-by-step push across the savage North Atlantic. First, the Faroe Islands, then Iceland, which to this day has its Norse roots, then all the way to Greenland, and then, around the year 1000, they made it to North America. Let that sink in. That's almost 500 years before Christopher Columbus. Now let's look east. This is where the Swedish Vikings, who came to be known as the Varangians, did something just mind-blowing. Remember how we said they could carry their ships? Well, they used that to drag their long ships from one river system to another, basically creating a path from the Baltic Sea all the way down to the Black Sea.
They were instrumental in founding the state that would eventually become Russia, and their reputation as fighters was so immense that the Byzantine emperor himself hired them to be his personal elite bodyguard. They were called the Varangian Guard, and they were legendary.
And then, of course, you have the direction that they're most famous for, at least in Western Europe. To the south and west, you had the Danish Vikings raiding the rich and often not very well defended coasts of places like England and France. But here's the thing. They didn't just take the money and run. They started to stay. They conquered territory. And they settled down, most famously in France, where they established the Duchy of Normandy. The name itself tells you the story. Normandy literally means land of the Northland. So you can see just how deep and lasting this impact was. Let's zoom in on one specific example, the Danelaw in England. This wasn't just some raiders' camp. This was a complete redrawing of the map of the country, a fundamental change. So after years and years of brutal fighting, the famous Anglo-Saxon king Alfred the Great basically came to the negotiating table. The deal he struck, the Treaty of Wedmore, was huge. It officially gave the entire northern and eastern chunk of England over to the Danes. It created a real physical border, politically and culturally, that sliced the island right in two. And this is my favorite part. It's absolutely amazing. That border, it's still there. You can see it today, hiding in plain sight just by looking at place names on a map. If you're in a town that ends with by or thorpe, think Derby or Scunthorpe, you are standing in the old Danelaw. Those are Norse words for village or farm. But if the town ends in ton or ham, like Southampton or Birmingham, you're in what was Anglo-Saxon territory. The 1,000-year-old invasion is literally written on the modern map of England. How cool is that? So what does this all mean when you put it together? It means the Vikings were so much more than just mindless destroyers. Their story actually follows this incredible pattern, one that we see over and over again in history, the journey from being chaotic raiders to becoming organized rulers. It's a pretty clear three-step process when you look at it. First, you have the raids, right? Go in, get plunder, get out. But then some of them start to think, hey, this land is actually way better than what we have back home. And that leads to step 2, settlement. They stay. But once you have communities, you need rules, you need organization, you need leaders. And that's step 3, civilization. Those little settlements grow into proper states, like Normandy or the Danelaw. So the raiders become settlers, and the settlers become the founders of nations. That, right there, is the true legacy of the Vikings. So think about where we started, with some tough, unforgiving farmland in Scandinavia. And where did we end up? With new kingdoms, new cultures, and a completely redrawn map of Europe. This whole cycle of migration, followed by conflict, and then finally integration, it's one of the most powerful forces in all of human history. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Where can we see that same pattern, that same journey from disruption to a totally new kind of order, playing out somewhere in the world today?